Hey everyone, welcome back. Brand new Take Aim podcast. And this week, as always, excited to catch up with my good buddy Blake Garrett. Blake has a lot of cool things going on at the moment, and he was super excited to share the news with us that he is now a registered land agent with the Midwest Land Group. So Blake's a recreational, deer hunting, farms, all that good stuff, real estate agent. And we talk about all the great reasons and options of why you might want to choose Missouri. And actually, right kind of in the area of Blake's in, we talk a lot about that, from agriculture, timber, food plots, deer hunting, genetics, age class, all of it. So a lot of great info. Thanks to Blake for his time today. It's obviously one of those best states, that you want to hunt every year. It's one of the top producing Boone and Crockett states. You can't go wrong in the Show Me state. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. It's a great show. Lots of great info. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, boys and girls, we are live, brand new Take Aim, and excited, as always, to get another show out, and excited to have my buddy back with us, Blake Garrett. What's happening, Blake?
How are you, man?
Good, man. What's going on in Missouri? Is it hot as all balls out there?
It is. It was cool for a little bit, but, man, it's up in the 90s today. It's a warm one.
Yeah, same here. It's we're on our way by 1:30. It's supposed to be 89 degrees, so we're right with you. But you're right. It had been really nice and cool here. We had a morning the other day where how you wake up and you kind of hit that first day, you can feel fall's coming. It was dude, I woke up, it was 53 degrees or 51, now I forget. It might have been 51, and it was just cool and misty and fog across the field, and you're like, holy cow, man, it's kind of getting close.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's super close. It snuck up on me for sure. I was not ready for this, but we're scrambling to get together, so.
Yeah. No, I know it. What's crazy, man, I know, we haven't talked much. You've obviously been busy working on a pretty cool project, but let everybody know kind of what's going on.
Yeah, so, it's added a little bit of real estate to my resume, I guess I should say, but started working with a company called Midwest Land Group, based out of Kansas, and they're right on that Kansas-Missouri line right there in Kansas City. And, land management has been something I've always done, and just haven't really handled the selling side of it, but it's still, something I was really interested in doing. Still get to kind of get my passion with hunting and with properties and things like that, and connecting people into dream properties to where they're going to make memories, and all that kind of comes together with it. So yeah, I started that probably in June or so is when I started the whole process, because I didn't have my license, I didn't have anything, so I started that process then and kind of worked through it. And then MLG does a great job with just training up their new agents and getting you ready to be out in the field. So went through their training, did everything, and then came out, and we're rocking and rolling right now. So pretty excited to get it going.
Yeah, I know that. Me personally, I love Missouri. I love North Missouri. From where you're at to the north, I think is such great hunting ground. And you're kind of if you ask me, right in the Mecca, Blake, and you're literally going to be kind of one of those guys that is really going to be focused on selling. Like you said, you manage a ton of ground in that area. So you're really kind of handing off some of the ground you even probably have personally managed, which is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're getting ready to list one that I've actually I've personally managed it since 14, so looking at about 6 years into it now, and it's just a phenomenal farm, and it's going to be nice, because when we got it, it was just nothing. It was buckbrush and just nothing, and ended up kind of turning it, getting some crops in there, and working on age structure to get the deer in there and get the doe numbers back up, and it's done just leaps and bounds. It's always one of my favorite farms to pull cameras on, because it usually always has at least one big one, and then it's always got an underclassman, a 3-year-old that's just phenomenal. And it just kind of feeds itself, it seems like, every year with just more big deer and more big deer. So Man, if I had more money, I'd buy it because it's just unreal. I've never seen a farm in Missouri that was, it has bottom ground right next to a river, and then it breaks up into a really steep rock bluff, and that whole bluff is lined with cedars. I mean, just solid cedars the whole way around it. And then once you get on top of that bluff, it's all hardwoods. So it's literally like you can walk through the farm and see 3 different things in one farm. It's got everything from great bedding, high, rocky hills that look like almost Colorado, to the big bottoms like, Missouri's known for in the river bottoms, and then obviously just hardwood ridges and oaks and things like that, that you see throughout the Midwest. So it's just kind of a perfect mix of everything, and I'm really excited to put it on the market. I think whoever ends up buying that thing's going to be really happy with it. But
yeah, that sounds like a beautiful piece of ground for sure. And I know that when I think about, eventually, which hopefully, God willing, next year or two, I buy ground. Missouri's on probably the top 3 states I would look, and besides me taking out of the equation like a short drive, it's the number 1 state I would look. And obviously,
yeah.
And you know this too, Blake. I mean, all of us would love to be in Iowa, but as a non-resident, non-resident landowner does not guarantee us a tag. Whereas Missouri, right, man, it's over the counter. I get to walk into Walmart and I can buy my tags. And you're talking about a state that historically, like, I think your deer numbers the last 2 years, like, it's still relatively low pressure during bow season. Only 30,000 deer were killed last year, maybe 5,000, if I do the numbers right. That's pretty low pressure, if you ask me, in one of the top 10 Boone and Crockett states of all time. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Missouri, the thing about Missouri that's really nice is there's really not any, like, I would say washy part of the state that's just not good for hunting. Like, it's unreal. Like, anywhere you go in Missouri, there's big deer. And, I'll say 10, 15 years ago, it used to be North Missouri was it, right? Like, if you wanted to shoot, 60-plus deer, you got to be north of the river. And in the last 10 years, it's absolutely been proven wrong. I think guys are kind of getting on board with the management aspect of it. Guys are letting deer grow because Missouri has phenomenal genetics laid in the herd. You know what I mean? And
sure,
really a good abundance of crop and nutrition for them. But ultimately, what we always struggled with is the age structure. And, a lot of guys will say it's the rifle season being in the middle of the rut, which is true. Those older deer are more susceptible to being killed because they're the dumbest point they are, the most hunters in the woods, essentially. But it's been proven, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, it's just been unreal. I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, we used to, run cameras on probably 8 different farms throughout central Missouri, and we would probably have 1, maybe 2 bucks that broke 160. Now we have 3 or 4 on each farm that break 160. And a couple that are up north of, on each farm. Like, it's unreal what has happened with it. And a lot of it goes back to, I think our management strategy and our, supplemental feeding strategy and things like that we're doing, but we're not doing anything that, anybody else can't do. It's always funny because guys talk, they'll watch Lee and Tiffany or they'll watch juries and they'll be like, oh man, if I could only, if I had that opportunity, I could do it. Well, here's the deal, man. We hunt the same stuff that everybody else hunts. I've got 2 farms that are over 400 acres. Every other farm, I have some 80s, I have some 30s, I got a bunch of 100s, 150-acre farms, and those are the farms that we made the difference in. And all this is, your supplemental feeding out of the season because we can't do it legally in the season, and we're making sure that we're not adding a lot of pressure. We're trying not to kill as many does as we can. And we're trying to really, really just what I would call selective harvest. A lot of guys would say culling. It's not really culling in the aspect of, if you look at your age classes of your deer across the board, you've got a line of 3-year-olds, a line of 4-year-olds, a line of 5-year-olds. And for instance, if you go into your 3-year-olds and say you've got 4 3-year-olds on the farm, and one of them's a 10-pointer that's, 135, a really nice young 10, and the other 3 are 8-pointers. I'm going to target those 3 8-pointers just because I know that 3 to 4 is going to be a big jump, and the older a deer gets, he wants to be the man more and more and more, right? So if I can take out his competition in his age class to where he's the oldest deer on the farm at 4, then it's more likely he's going to stay on the farm, right?
Right.
So we really try to look at those across the board. Like, we kill everything at 5 that we can. Everything across the board at 5 goes. 4 is where you really make your hard passes. 4 is when, you may have a deer that is, I mean, we did it last year. Like, we had a 165-inch 6x6 4-year-old. And that's a tough deer because he's a great deer, right? I mean, just phenomenal.
That's a tough deer to pass anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard pass.
That's a hard pass.
Absolutely. But the thing is, his demeanor and the way he was mentally is he was a homebody. He stayed home. We had daylights of him everywhere on the farm throughout the entire year. And we thought, we got a pretty good chance, a pretty good gamble to keep him on the farm and keep him alive. I think we can do it. And we gambled with it, and we did. And he's on the farm this year, and he's probably 180-inch 6x6 this year. Straight 6x6, same frame, just a lot heavier, and actually he threw a little kicker off of his 2. That's substantial, 4-inch kicker. But, with the 5, and he jumped another 18 to 20 inches. So it's like, those are passes that I don't expect people to make, I guess I should say. But if you really want to shoot, a big deer, and this rolls back, I'm going to get on a rant here, but rolls back to social media. You get guys who ooh and ah over, trail camera pictures of 170 class deer and above, but those guys aren't doing anything to make that happen on their farm. And a lot of cases, they can do it, you know what I mean, or at least set themselves up for a better chance of it.
Right.
But those guys want to a lot of times just not put the work into it and say, well, if I could only have that, I'd do it. But those are the same guys shooting 140-inch 3-year-old 10s, which that 170 was at one point in his life. You know what I mean? So
yeah, he was.
It's just a matter of, if you're really into killing big deer. I mean, everybody will kill a big deer, but only a few will put the work in to do it. There's ways around it, and that's one thing we always try to showcase with what we do, with the supplemental feeding and all that is something that, I do it in the off season. I know guys who supplemental feed way more than I do and at a way higher level. I can't do it, unfortunately. I'm not able to, fill 2,000-pound feeders every week with feed, but we feed what we can feed just to get them something, into them. And
keep going,
it helps.
Keep pumping them, yeah.
Right, absolutely, and it helps. It helps with daytime pictures. It helps with all that, relieving pressure on the farm. It kind of gets them, relatively acceptable, that acceptance of us. Yeah, you change that behavior and the status of the farm by doing it. And I think a lot of guys can really do that, but they just don't. They just think it's like this impossible task or this impossible feat, and ultimately it's not. I mean, Missouri is a super, super good state. And I tell you what, I've seen booners come from down by the lake, down by the Lake of the Ozarks. I've seen booners come from the middle of the state. I've seen them obviously come from the north part of the state. So there's really not, I mean, gosh, you look at Missouri, it's got Illinois on one side. It's got Kansas on the other. It's got Iowa on the other side. Like, it's just unreal.
Yeah.
It's got the genetics. It's got the run to do it. It's just about age at that point. So that's one thing, we always talk about with landowners and stuff and moving them into properties is, man, if you really want a good hunting farm, it's in Missouri. It's there. It's got everything you need. You just gotta put the work into it, and it can really, really blow up if you get the age structure right, because that's something we can actually affect is age structure. You can't change genetics. You can't change genetics. You can't change habitat for the most part. I mean, to add, for the food they need, but you can change your genetics pretty dang easy, or age structure, pretty dang easy. So that's where it's at, you know what I mean?
Yeah, age is everything, and like you said, you can add to habitat, but it is limited. But it's limited just based on what Mother Nature's already done. She's already done the work in Missouri. There's no doubt. And like that area you're in, Blake, for the past few years, have you seen more people get on board with that age structure? I know you kind of said that the rest of the state has, like, meaning west and south, I would assume, but in your area, has more people jumped on, that side of the things, or has it kind of always been like that the last couple of years where you're at?
No, I think they have. We kind of had the best of both worlds back in the 90s here, in the middle part of the state. In fact, I grew up in a county called Saline County, and Saline County was the number one entry for Missouri big bucks for like years and years and years. And it was just because we had the habitat at the time. The tags really kind of limited guys to really beating up the does really bad. And the age structure was already kind of set in place. Now, as more hunters came along, habitat went away, and doe tags went up. That went away. We got hit with. Missouri came out with a endless doe tags for $7. Well, the problem is guys would watch TV, and some high fence ranch in Texas would talk about how you got to kill your does and you want a 1-to-1 ratio and things like that. So guys were going out, and I literally know probably 5 different guys that went out and killed over 40 does off of farms.
Wow.
In one year.
That hurts. Yeah.
And what really hurt, it wasn't, the doe numbers hurt it, but what they really did is they killed about 20 button bucks because that's the easiest thing to kill. Well, you took out that whole year, you know what I mean? You set your age structure back so far by killing all those button bucks that's really what hurt it more than anything, I believe. And guys started kind of, doing that. And then we had EHD come through one year. You know what I mean? And then we had EHD come through, and that, I think, compiled with, the amount of button bucks that got killed, plus the EHD those years, it just knocked it down. And it's finally coming back. It's been, it's like I said, it's been 5 years in the making to where it's finally, getting back to where it can support the age structure again.
Yeah, that cycle's come back, yeah.
Right. But, yeah, absolutely, I'll tell you that the atmosphere of hunters around here, I think a lot of them understand now and kind of see it. I know the supplemental feeding around here has really stepped up a lot in the last couple of years. Once guys have kind of seen, what we've been able to have success with in the area, I think that's something that's really kind of stepped up too. And overall, the deer are just getting better, you know what I mean, every year. I mean, that's the good thing about it.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's no shortage of great deer in Missouri, and I'm glad that that cycle has kind of fully, come back to where it was because, I mean, it's always fun to see great deer, and it's always fun to me to see a state like Missouri that should be succeeding doing what it's supposed to do, and that's really good deer because you guys are made for it. And
yeah, absolutely.
On the flip side of things, Blake, like obviously I'm all in, and it will never be a hard pass for me to go to Missouri or to not want to look at buying property there one day. But to make it happen, Blake, on the business side, I'll call it, what are things we need to look for to kind of maybe make some of our money back on some of these farms? So, like, what are some of the things you would point to, what you've learned recently on how to get some of that money back, whether it be CRP, crop leasing, or timber value?
Yeah, well, I mean, tillable is always going to be a moneymaker for you in Missouri. And whether it's tillable, CRP, tillable is tillable, CRP is tillable. It's just lower grade soil that's just pulling CRP off of instead of corn or beans. But we've got a great presence, I'll say, of beans and corn, obviously, in Missouri, and ground that can support it. So I would say, if you're wanting to look at stuff, you want to look at independent on how much you want to actually make back off the property. I know some guys that just do a 1/3, 2/3, and they literally take their third and turn it into food plots. They'll leave the corn standing, they'll leave the beans standing, whatever the case may be. I know some guys that want need the return off of it, and they're gonna look for a farm that's a 50-50 split between timber and crops at least, and they're gonna try to do a cash rent kind of thing or something like that to where they can see that return off of it. But there's a really good mix. I mean, there's not a lot of ground in Missouri that's not tillable, especially where I'm at here in the middle of the state.
Right.
In fact, heck, even you start getting a little north and west, up around the Missouri River bottoms and stuff like that, around Malta Bend and things, like you start kind of struggling to find timber because everything's tillable. Yeah. So there's always kind of a good mix with it. I know a lot of guys that kind of try to do the best of both worlds, and they'll get a farm that's like a 60 timber, 40 roll crop, tillable ground, and then they'll kind of try to use some CRP strategically in it to create some bedding and things like that. things like that help. I mean, if you've got, it depends on too long term, how long you want to be in the farm. If you're going to go in and, have it logged or take the walnuts off of it or things like that, you can see some return out of that without just absolutely diminishing your hardwoods. There's a lot of options for it for getting money back off of a farm. You just got to find the right farm, and that's one thing we do really well is if that's one of your criteria, just let us know, man. That's something we can find, and we'll get set up with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot to be had there, and especially if you have some ground that can be tilled. For a guy, I'm just speaking non-resident, Blake, for a guy that, let's say, like me, that wants to buy in your area, it's kind of good to have that tillable ground and have maybe that relationship with that farmer, because like you mentioned about the food plot thing, you might be able to turn that into like, hey, we have a little friendship now. Can you help me out with food plots? There's just so many avenues that could help a guy like me from a non-resident point of view that can't be there as much as I would love to be to get some of that work done. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And another option is what we do, where we fly in. Now we're getting ready to do it here in the next 2 weeks. We're going to fly in all of our food plots over our standing corn. And then it doesn't mess with your yield at all. You still can get all the yield you want to off that row crop, but as soon as they take the corn off or the beans off, you've got turnips or you've got whatever you flew in crop-wise right there ready for a food plot.
So explain that to everybody, Blake, if they don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so every year what we'll do is we have an aerial application, so same crop dusters you see going around spraying stuff, they also do a dry run essentially. So what they'll do is we'll load them up with seed, and we usually do a turnip and oats mix, and then they come in and they fly our corn. You have to wait till the corn is right above, it's dead all the way, so it'll be brown all the way above the ears. So the ear's dead and then down, and the tops are still green. Wait till that point, and you can actually have them crop dust and fly that in over your corn. And those seeds actually take off good underneath that corn. And when they come in to harvest the corn, they just cut it, and they cut right above your turnips, and the corn's gone, and you've got a cut cornfield that has turnips all the way throughout it, which is a great, late season plot or, just late season foliage in general. Yeah, for sure. It is. So that's kind of a best way. We've done that on a bunch of leases that we don't really have access to the ground, or we don't want to, the farmer's got the lease on the ground and we've got the lease on the hunting part of it. Well, we don't, want to take away from the farmer's lease, obviously. So we'll just do that. The farmer loves it because it's good for the soil, and it's really growth. Right, and they literally don't have to touch any part of it. They don't even. It doesn't change anything they do. It doesn't do anything. Yeah, exactly. That's such a sweet way to do it, and it's literally like they're done practically in no time. It's probably one or two swipes or air passes. Yeah. I mean, we planted 45 acres last year in like 15 minutes. I watched him for like 15 minutes. It was like 95. It was so rewarding to sit in the back of my truck and not sweat and just watch him fly it over and like, okay, well, food plots are done for this year. So it was nice. And that's honestly not that expensive. You're going to look at somewhere, depending on your seed price, somewhere between $15 and $30 per acre. Yeah. So you figure, whatever you figure for your time. And heck, I know there's bags of, it's hard to find seed for $30 an acre. Yeah, some places, you know what I mean? Yeah, for sure it is. So when you look at it in that aspect of it, it breaks down pretty good. Yeah, it does for sure. Now, I know, Blake, like that farm that you just mentioned that you're actually going to be listing here shortly, I just think deservingly so. We should talk about it just a little bit more, but you've been running trail cams on that farm for ages, and just talk about some of the deer that you've actually, at this point you practically know 4 and 5 years, and just seeing, we spoke about earlier, deer are actually living and they're getting to that age structure. And this is a farm you're ready to list. Right, absolutely, yeah. So one thing I always look for when you talk about leases or even buying ground, one big thing that stands out to my mind is if somebody's got trail camera history, I want to know what it is, and I want to see, even if it's 2 years, 3 years, if they've got that, that's very valuable information to me, because what it tells me is you can ask what hunting pressure is, and they can be like, oh, somebody hunts on this side, somebody hunts on this side. But if you can, like, for instance, this farm I have I'm listing, it had probably 160-inch 3-year-old last year, 6x6, phenomenal deer. And he ends up living and came up this year, and now I don't even know how big he is. He's big. He's north of 70s. Straight 6x6, broad daylight, showing up on this mineral lick again like crazy. And what that can kind of tell you for the farm is that you're able to grow deer on it, if that makes sense. It's proof that even a big deer, a hard pass deer that's 3 and dumb and will run around like an idiot in a rut, is a deer that you could keep alive on it. So that's value to me. And that's something I really try to look for in my leases, because there's nothing worse, and I've had it happen to me before, when you try to grow a deer and you walk him and you have this great history with him, and then the neighbor dumps him. You know what I mean? It's usually like on the last day of rifle season, too late to shoot, and they didn't know what they were doing, or whatever the case may be. But that sucks, and that happens, though. It's part of what we do. So any kind of proof I can have or validity I can get off of a farm that lets me know that those deer will make it, throughout that hard process and really, escape that pressure. And as long as I keep them alive on my farm, they've got a good chance of living till the next year. That's a valuable farm to me. That's something I try to really, really key in on and go after. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's so important. It's so important to have that history of trail camera photos, because, I mean, it's very doable to get with the landowner or the, land agent like yourself and say, like, basically, let's map this out. I mean, you can do all that. I mean, that's how important that data is. And if you have that, especially coming from a recreational property from somebody that's wanting to use it for deer hunting, I mean, to me, that would, besides, how the property lays out, like, that would be a super important tidbit. And I know, a lot of the, farmers that don't hunt aren't always going to do that. But, man, I can't imagine stumbling on a piece of property where that kind of data is already there for me. I mean, that's, like, mind-blowing.
Yeah, and it's a rarity. I mean, usually, a lot of the listings I'll take, I don't have that history with it. Now, I try my best to get out there, and a lot of the other agents do too. We're going to get out there and we're going to see what's there, run cameras, and you can tell a lot of farm off of 1 year just off of age structure alone. If I've got a 5-year-old on the farm and he's a good deer, then I know I'm probably pretty good with growing deer on it. If I've got a 5-year-old 120-inch 8-pointer, well, that deer may have just got passed by everybody too. You know what I mean? He may not actually, be able to keep him alive. So you can, again, trail cameras show a lot. A lot of guys look for rack size. When I look at trail cameras, I really look at age structure more and try to figure out, okay, I've got a bunch of 3-year-olds. And that's another thing. If you've got a farm that produces super 3-year-olds like this farm does, that's value, right? Because the genetics are there, everything's there to grow these deer, and all you got to do is get lucky and get one to 4 or 5, whatever it is. Well, your neighbor's not going to shoot them every year. So if you got a farm that's producing, you know what I mean? If it's producing at least 2, exceptional 3-year-olds that are in the high 50s or low 50s even, and just have junk, and could really throw on inches going to 4 or 5. That's something that has value too, because it's just a matter of maybe it takes you getting in there, dropping a little bit of pressure off of them and dropping a little bit of food for them in the off season, and you can kind of change that dynamic where that deer stays. Or maybe it takes you killing the old deer off the farm. You know what I mean? To get him to stay.
That's right.
But regardless, that big 3-year-old's there, and it kind of shows what that area can produce. So that's another thing to look for, when you're really running trail cameras, is don't look for rack size as much as you're trying to establish age structure, because that can tell you a lot about the area and about what that farm can do, potential-wise. Yeah,
for sure. That's such a good point. I mean, I would be super stoked to stumble upon a farm that had just a giant crop of 3-year-olds. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more, especially, if you have more than one, it's going to tell you a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to tell you genetically what your upper end could be and what your lower end can be, and how you need to move forward the next couple of years with your management plan. So that's a super great point. By all means, don't be disappointed if you don't get booners walking around. There's a lot to be thankful for if you do have 3 or 4-year-olds And like I said, it will literally tell you what the future holds and how you can start to manage that ground.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, 9 times out of 10, if you've got a bunch of young deer and you've got one old deer, he's the problem. 9 times out of 10. So you may have to bite the bullet, and you may have to kill, you may have to kill a 125 or 130-inch 8-pointer that's 6 years old. But that first year, doing that will change that whole dynamic of that farm to where those deer won't just be there in the summer getting pictures and then leaving. Like, they'll stay. And that's really when you can, start making the right moves towards management. So I think it's a big thing. Everybody wants to talk about management and they want to see the benefits of it, but nobody wants to bite the bullet and do the ugly work, which is sometimes you got to kill the old bully. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you do. There's a lot of reality to that, and a lot of guys don't believe that one deer with an inferior rack can do that to a piece of ground, but it absolutely can.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've got a deer. I'll tell you this little side story. I've got a farm that's probably 60 acres, and it's got a giant on it, upper 90s deer, and been feeding on it. And that 190 deer will literally, I've watched this, like, I don't even know how old this deer is. He's probably 6. The 5-year-old, or the big deer is only 5, but I think this deer's 6, 7, I don't know. He's old, and he's a 7-pointer that probably will score 115 inches, and I've watched that 7-pointer push him off the pile probably 5 different times. 5 different days, you know what I mean, where he'll be eating, the big deer will be eating, and the 7-pointer will come in and push him off, and you'll just see the big deer in the background just waiting for that 7-pointer to get done. Like, he's got to go, and I think there's a bunch of, he's just got to go. Somebody's got to bite the bullet, and what I'm going to try to do is just get like Hagen or, a kid on him or somebody that just would like him as a, and if I can't find somebody to do it, then I'll do it. I mean, it just is what it is, but, there's a bunch of stuff with that. I mean, a bunch of statistics and stuff to support that stuff. I know I remember Bill Winky back in the day, he had that deer he shot I think he ended up shooting the deer 3 times or something over 8 years. And this deer was just not prevalent on the farm the first couple years. And then Bill killed a big deer, like a 160-10, and the second Bill killed that deer, this other deer just showed up in the middle of the farm and was daylighting on every camera, just super pro. Like he was running, he wasn't scared to walk around anymore, and it was super killable and things like that. And it just goes to show what, that dynamic is really what it's about. You can change your crops, you can dump feed on the ground, but if you really want to change the killability, I'm going to say killability, I don't even know if that's a word, but it's essentially, if you really want to, it is now. If you want to change the killability of a deer, the problem is it's probably an older deer that's keeping him on the skirt, on the outskirts of the farm, or keeping him, to come around at night or whatever the case may be when he's scared to get his hand caught in the cookie jar kind of thing. You kill that old deer, that deer very well may move there and be broad daylight all the time running stuff because he's not living in fear anymore or getting beat.
No, that's absolutely true. And I think it's one of those things when you want to talk management, Blake, you really have to break management down, and you have to break it down to what we talked about already is age class, genetics, buck to doe ratio, and then you got it's social structure as well. And part of that is like what we just talked about is taking out the old inferior ones that can run a place, literally run a farm and run every great buck out of your ground. So
absolutely.
There's a lot to management. I think management is such a blanket word that people don't dive in enough to what it really takes to run a good piece of ground.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of guys think management's like hinge cutting and putting in food plots.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's absolutely not it at all. It 100% is not it. There's so much more in that, if you dive into that, like you said, that social structure of the farm, those things are prevalent. They legit will make a change in a farm in literally a matter of weeks. Can't tell you how many times we've killed an old deer off of a farm and had 4 or 5 new bucks show up a week later and stay.
Yeah.
It's just unreal. I've got that, I don't know if you know that brow time buck I posted a couple days ago. He's got giant eye guards. He's like a 10-pointer. Never saw that deer until the rut last year, and he showed up, and literally he showed up 2 weeks after Hagen shot the Gravy buck, the 9-year-old. So Hagen shot that Hagen shot Gravy, the 9-year-old. 2 weeks later, this deer shows up. I'd never seen him before in my life, and the deer stayed. He stayed on the farm. He's been on the farm. Now he's stayed all the way through the rut, all the way through late season. I've got him all the way through growth, all through the whole summer, in the daylight. Like, there's nothing else that would move that deer from being never on the farm to just being on the farm all the time.
Wow.
Other than Gravy, Gravy's been there, and Gravy's a 9-year-old deer. He's ran that area for freaking probably the last 4 years.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that deer grew up under Gravy. You know, he's younger, obviously, and he grew up under him, of always getting beat up by him, and he's never going to try to push it with him.
Yeah.
But we got him out of there, and 2 weeks later he shows up, and now he's on the farm all the time, and he's an exceptional deer. Going to be way bigger than Gravy ever was.
Wow. Yeah, and what more could you ask for? Do you want just one buck that's inferior running around, or would you rather have a handful that can all manage to get it to live in that space, you know?
Right.
So it is funny that there is that kind of social aspect to deer, but it's really true that they have personalities and that's what they do. But like I said, again, it's diving into that, again, I hate the blanket word management, but it's diving into your program to make sure everything is copacetic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, I know, you have a couple good deer that you're after this year, Blake, but I mean, man, hunting season's like right around the corner, and how excited are you to kick off Missouri season?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I tell you what, I've got one that a big deer that I've hunted him last year pretty hard. We passed him the year before that a couple times, and then last year I just could never get in front of this deer. He just was always kind of one step ahead of me. But he's been a lot more prevalent on the farm this year. I've probably got twice as many pictures of him each month since May. So that's a good sign. He daylighted a lot. Like last year, he never daylighted in July. The whole month of July, he never daylighted one time. He daylighted 16 days in July this year. So, I think he's kind of back on the program. He's kind of getting a little bit more confident with the farm and using it a little bit more in the daylight and a little bit more comfortable. It was kind of new, last year I think it was kind of new to my strategy like we've talked about in the past of, kind of building that I'm going to drive in, I'm going to dump this feed, I'm going to be loud, I'm going to drive out. And that last year was really the first year I did that on that farm, and I think he was kind of hesitant of it. He would even, I can tell you I had pictures of him where he would just turn inside out on the camera going off. Because I used to run like 2 cameras. Yeah, I used to run a mobile.
Yeah,
I used to run a mobile, and then I ran a regular camera there at that spot, and he would just, I don't know if the mobile was clicking or I don't know what was going on with it. Those things can kind of be weird when you run them off of a solar battery or solar chargers. If your batteries are about dead, it won't throw that filter as clean, and it'll sometimes make a noise like a click or something like that. And I don't know if that was the case or what, but I probably had 4 different times that deer would literally, I'd just get a blur picture of him. He'd be there eating, and I'd get a blur picture of him, and he'd be gone.
He's gone. Yeah,
and,
crazy.
Yeah, just gone, and wouldn't show up for 3 or 4 days. And then he'd come back in just nervous, always looking at the camera and stuff like that. But kind of built we built it on him. I stayed consistent, and I did the same thing, from late season on. This year, I did it, obviously last year all the way through, and then we hunted him. I quit doing it, and then went right back into that, back in January. I went right back into that same program, being super predictable, driving in the same way, doing everything the exact same. And I think he's becoming more complacent to it now because I think he thinks he's got my number. And, in fact, I've had probably 3 different times that he showed up within an hour of me dumping food in the summer.
Yeah.
So he knows I'm there. He hears me.
Right.
He knows what I'm doing. But it shows that he's comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So that helps. So I think I got a pretty good shot at him this year. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. But it's going to be a crazy year. It's going to be busy. I know with the Midwest Land Group stuff and taking care of people and trying to get things. Trying to get some property sold and stuff in the middle of all of it. It'll be kind of chaotic, but we'll do our best and get it all done. Yeah,
for sure. I know that I'm looking forward to, potentially coming out and visit and seeing what you're doing, and can't wait for that. And I know that, Blake, you probably have a special spot for like some of these listings and stuff like that, so let everybody know where they can find those listings at.
Yeah, so the best thing is, I don't know if you've ever been on the Midwest Land Group website, but, man, it's phenomenal. It's literally a website built for selling land. It's got just high-res photos. It's got just about everything you could ask for as far as a property goes. Get a full rundown of what a property is, full details and all that. And then there's just a ton of great agents throughout, really the Midwest and all. And if anybody ever has any questions at all about property, even to look to buy or to sell or any of that, they can reach out to me just through my social media outlets, or it's just bgarrett at midwestlandgroup.com for the email. But the website, I would definitely direct people to our website, because the Midwest Land Group website is just phenomenal. It's leaps and bounds above anything I've seen out there for marketing land.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've been on the website. It is pretty awesome, and I know sometimes it's so cool that you can waste a lot of time. I don't want to call it wasted, because I think looking at land is awesome, but you can get caught up, and before you know it, an hour goes by checking out really cool farms. But one thing, Blake, which it's up to you if you want to take an extra minute or two to talk about it, but we didn't really talk about anything that goes into like a pre-approval or what is needed fund-wise before I let you go, and just maybe you can give us kind of just some blanket information without going too deep into it, because that's an important part, is people have to have their finances in line, and that pre-approval has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just going to be about, we can help, some of our agents can help you with whatever area you're looking for. My best suggestion for anybody who's even dabbling in it is to contact one of our agents or myself. Don't ever think you're inconveniencing us with your time. That's what we do. We love talking to people. We love meeting people, and we love really connecting people to their dream properties, or, helping them sell property. So my best advice is always that. If you ever have any questions, just give us a call. Like I say, or you can shoot me a message on Instagram or shoot me an email, any of that. Just get a hold of us, let us know, and I can even direct. Heck, we're brokered in, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, Illinois now, South Dakota, and Missouri. So anybody who has any ground in any of those places, or is looking to buy ground, or just wants to know more information about maybe the state or what part of the state they should look for, it's best just to give me a shout. And then financing-wise, there's a ton of different ways we can go that route. It's hard to really give a broad statement on that. Typically, if you're going to finance a deal, you're looking at like 20% down, but that's not always average either. It's just kind of what they want to do, and we can get that way. Best thing is, if you have a financial institution that you want to work with, so just to contact them on that and just try to figure out what your price range needs to be, and they can break all that down for you, and then from there we'll kind of go, and once you know that criteria, we'll get you going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I basically just said, hey, Blake, make the hardest part of that decision in a blanket statement.
You're like, take the most individual point of this and make it broad. Is what it was.
That was totally hilarious. But yeah, that's for most people not the fun part. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it is reality, and it's not simple. And it, like you said, that's actually the best information is get with somebody that trusted. I know there's a couple banks that work with just doing recreational land or farmland, but make sure to check out all of those avenues. And like Blake said, usually 20% is a rule of thumb down. So have your ducks in a row. And obviously, if you're thinking of buying or selling in that part of Missouri, man, check out Blake and what he's got going on. But great show, Blake, and thanks for all the information.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. It's good talking to you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yep, absolutely. And boys and girls, every week, Outdoor Podcast Channel, Unfiltered Outdoor app, iTunes, and we'll see you again real soon. Thanks, Blake.
All right, we'll see you, bud.